ended up pinning each other up against walls and back to back, very intimate connection with a stranger. By the third yoga class that we both attended, he asked me out to movies, and the movie house was fully booked, so we ended up speaking for 5 or 6 hours, sitting in the hotel garden, and I felt like I had found my best friend. And our children still shake their heads at us and say, "You're still talking to each other after all these years." We're still, I would say I've always worried about getting married to somebody or having a lifelong relationship and getting bored with them. Well, I can honestly say after 37, I find my husband the most interesting person I know. And I think that's it. It's friendship, teamwork, and feeling at home with each other, I think, is very important.
Love is complicated, or so they say, and that's why there's so many books written about it, movies, songs, but you make it sound uncomplicated. I don't think, when you say Antony just turned up at yoga and he'd never done yoga before, he was meant to be there, obviously, on that day to meet you. And I keep learning the lesson that I don't think things happen by chance. Somehow the universe, I think, is always working in mysterious ways that we never quite fully understand at the time. But love is one thing that has, it's kind of, I'm not entirely sure I've had a great relationship with it at times. Love for myself, but also I find it very easy to love others. But then I've come to learn that love means different things for different people. And I found love in so many ways, not just in one other person. I find it every day in nature, in friends, in just human kindness. But love with a romantic partner does seem to be probably the most complex of types of love, or would you say that's not true?
I think essentially this doesn't quite answer your question, but my response is that essentially everything is uncomplicated. That's the feeling that I have, that, or perhaps I should put it a bit better, that when one has a sense that things are uncomplicated, that's a kind of a sign that there's some kind of rightness happening there. That when I find life complicated, and we all do from time to time, of course, but when I find life complicated, I'm anxious about this and regretful about that and hopeful about the next, and that kind of thing, I usually don't have a sense of having a firm seat in the inside of this life. The times that are very meaningful to me are invariably ones that have a sense of clarity and simplicity and straightforwardness about them. The meeting Margie was one of those. It almost didn't need discussing, although, as she says, we talk a lot. But it was essentially a very simple thing that happened, almost elemental, I suppose. We also have a life where we try and balance out various aspects, and we, of course, are trying to find this balance all the way. But for me, fundamentally, it's a sense of clarity and sort of elegance that appears when things are clear. In a romantic relationship, in a relationship with an animal, in a relationship with the sky, with a rock, with a tree. And I think you put it beautifully in your last podcast, although the subject sounds a bit intimidating, heartbreak. Listening to it wasn't discouraging in any way. It was the story of someone who'd taken something very strong and had somehow digested that inside themselves. And that was lovely to listen to. And it's not as if one holds a certain kind of love separate for your love for everything else. They seem to go together, and one's affection for the world and one's affection for one's spouse or partner feels like a single thread, really.
Margie, you said you were kind of grateful that you found someone who wanted to marry you because you're sort of quite a quiet person before, which I can kind of relate to in a way. Why did you feel that there was someone that you felt grateful that someone would want to marry you?
I think it was because I'd had all the wrong relationships before that. Which that, to say that love is easy or comes naturally, I think it does, but we are so inhibited by our experience of what we perceive as love when we're young. It's that wanting that one person to be in your life, even if they're not the right one for you, which brings more heartbreak, I think. If I think back on my life, and the person that I wanted to love me at the time, and I look back in retrospect, I am very grateful that that relationship didn't last. At the time, it was very heartbreaking. And I think also in life, the older you get, you realize that life gives you two kinds of relationships. The one that's right and the one that's wrong. Otherwise, we wouldn't know what is right for us. So I appreciate what Antony is to me, because the man that I loved for many years was a complete opposite of him. And I often speak to people who are a bit older, and that is what happens. They tend to have the two opposites in their lives, which help them to appreciate the one that is with them, because they've had the wrong one before. I think that's often not easier, but it gives you a better perspective of who you are and how worthy you are of love. I think when I met Antony, I was frightened. I ran away for a while because it just was too good to be true.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of Flip It, and if you did, I would be hugely grateful if you could rate, review, and subscribe, because together we can discover and share more stories and voices that deserve to be heard.